إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Verily all praise and thanks is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. It is He whom we worship, it is He whom we ask for help, and it is He whom we ask for forgiveness. Whomsoever He guides, none can misguide, and whomsoever He misguides, none can guide. And after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I would like some peace and blessings upon the best of mankind, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. My brothers and sisters, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has not created us alone. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in societies and in communities. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. O mankind, verily we have created you from a male and female, and we have made you into different tribes and nations so that you may know one another. So therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in these communities, and we communicate with one another. However, in recent times, the way we communicate and address and talk to one another has changed. Before, it just used to be face-to-face transactions, face-to-face dealings, and so on. But now we have a new way of communicating, which is social media. And a lot of people think when we talk about the dangers of social media, it's referring just to the children. And that's not the case anymore. Maybe a decade ago, but not anymore. Nowadays, even the elders have TikTok accounts. And the elders are probably on the phones more than some of the children. Because the children, their phones get taken away sometimes at certain times. But the elder, he has his phone with him all the time. So this is an issue and a topic which is not just for those who are young, but it's for everyone, including myself. All of us are attached to our phones. Whether it includes the actual apps, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and all the others, Facebook, or if it's just being glued to the phone itself, or being glued to the PlayStation or the Xbox, COD, FIFA, whatever it may be, Fortnite, whatever it is. Right? All of these gadgets, devices would all come under this topic of social media. And these technologies and social media have become so ingrained in our lives that we can't imagine a life without them. And many of these devices do have a lot of benefits to them. But as anyone who is just with himself and sincere to himself and honest with himself knows that the harms are much more than the benefits. I want to start by mentioning just some statistics from one study that I came across regarding social media. There was a study carried out by Millennium Cohort Study, or it's called the Millennium Cohort Study. And they had interviewed 11,000 14-year-olds. So year 9s, right? High school kids. They interviewed 11,000 of them. And Millennium Cohort is a company that studies the lives of children and so on. So in this study, they focus more on social media. And they found a number of things. They found that girls spend far more time on social media than boys. And that girls are much more likely to display signs of depression linked to the interactions on the social media platforms. Almost 40% of the girls, that's nearly half of these girls, right, that took part in this study. Almost 40% of girls who spent more than 5 hours a day on social media showed symptoms of depression. Most girls with that depression were unhappy with their appearance and were 2.5 more times likely to be dissatisfied with their weight compared to boys. And half of the depressed girls and a quarter of the depressed boys say that they suffer from disrupted sleeping patterns. And this is just one small study, and subhanAllah, you can see the effects of it. That in simple terms, half the kids are depressed, half the kids can't sleep properly. And these are whom? Bache, 14-year-olds. Right? And you'll find that back in the day, I'm sure many of you have heard many khutbahs and lectures on the importance of having good companions. You know the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, Al-mar'u ala dini khalilih, falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil. A person is upon the religion of his friend. So look at whom you take as your friend. And we know the hadith of Prophet ﷺ where he says that a person and his friends is the example of the one who enters into the perfume shop. Even if he doesn't buy anything, he comes out smelling nice. And that's the example of good friends. And the example of bad friends is going to a blacksmith and coming out with blackness all over your clothes and having that smell. And that's the example of having bad friends. Right? And when we talk about this topic, a lot of the times parents would think, okay, this is referring to my child making sure he's not hanging around with the wrong crowd. Making sure he's not on the streets, making sure he's not going here, he's not hanging around with this person, or he's not trying to meet this person, and so on. But now, it's different. Now, that part is still there, but it's not just about what is outside of the house. Nowadays, people are within the house, but because of their devices and their phones, it's as though they are outside of the house at the same time. They've got access to the whole world. They've got access to anyone and everyone. And even if they're not doing things which are haram, which are incorrect, even just looking at certain things. You know, you listen to Quran and an advertisement comes up with music, or advertisement of women, or anything else which is haram comes up, right? Raghib al-Asfahani rahimahullah, he says, ليس إعداء الجليس لجليسه بمقالة أو فعالة فقط. That the effect that a person has on his friend is not just by what he says and what he does, بل بالنظر أيضا. But also just by looking at your friend, that can have an effect on you. So what about the person who's glued to his phone, just looking and scrolling, looking at so many different things? Even if those things are not haram within or themselves, he's glued to his phone. He's wasting his time with that which is not beneficial. And then due to the dopamine and so on, right, it's having a negative effect on his mental health. And you'll find that people, they can't sit still for more than 2 minutes. They can't concentrate to a lecture or to a lesson or to anything beneficial or important for more than a couple of minutes. They have to, and that's why people don't watch videos anymore. It's all about reels and shorts and quick TikToks, right? And in terms of a person's religion, you'll find that social media is from the most destructive things to a person's life and to his religion. His life has some of the symptoms of depression, of anxiety, of sleeping disorders that I just mentioned to you. But also upon the religion. A person, for example, we have a sister, for example, right? She wears the niqab. And then because of certain things that she sees on social media, she takes the niqab off. For whatever reason it may be. She might turn around and say, or the ulama differ, some say it's not obligatory, so she takes it off. But that is only the first step. Then it goes from a loose abaya to a tight abaya. Then the abaya comes off, and the only thing is like a little string on her head. And then it gets worse and worse. And now because her pictures are changing from her being fully covered to her exposing more of herself, the likes are increasing. The comments are increasing. So she continues in that. And then she gets attached to the amount of likes and comments, and depending on how many likes and comments she gets, that can have an effect on her mood and on her mental health. And then because she's showing more of herself, guess what? The opposite gender is commenting more now as well. And then you can imagine where that can lead. You know, back in the day, if there was a woman who didn't dress properly, what would happen? She would just go to the shop. How many people do you think would see her? Right? Obviously the men should be lowering their gaze. But let's say 2 or 3 people will see her, right? But now on social media, what happens? The picture is saved. Right? People can zoom in, people can go forward, back, edit. With AI now, they Photoshop and do all sorts. Right? And instead of it back in the day being a sin that might have been, for both the man looking and also for the woman going and not dressed properly, the sin would have been limited to that specific time. But now, just as we have sadaqah jariyah, you have sayyi'ah jariyah, an ongoing sin. That photo is there. And people are looking and commenting and liking. And it's not just for the sisters, right? Also for the brothers. Sometimes you'll find that the brothers are not dressed appropriately. They're showing their awrah, right? A man has to cover from his navel to his knee. Wearing shorts is not allowed. So just as you might see a woman not dressed appropriately, not wearing the hijab appropriately, and you think that that is incorrect, likewise it's incorrect for you to be showing that part of your body. And even if that part is covered, right, still out of decency, out of muru'ah, out of social decorum, you shouldn't be showing the rest of your body. Or be dressed in a certain manner which is not befitting for a Muslim to dress himself in. And then you'll find others who, you know, will go through these social medias and they'll find these, you know, certain roadmen or gangsters or wannabes, right? And they'll take them as their role model. You know, I remember some brothers a couple of years ago. I don't know what his name is. You know that guy that went tick, tick, tack? Yeah? Some of you know. Right? All the kids were doing it. Like, who is he? He's no one. Jahil, ignorant. But then all you see the kids walking up and down, just singing that song. Right? Likewise, anyone else becomes famous, people just want to emulate and copy that person. I know people, youngsters, they start sitting like this now. I don't know how you do it. Right? Those that know. Okay? Right. What happened to taking لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, that the Messenger ﷺ is the best of role models. Nowadays people can't even mention the Prophet's name. Okay, Prophet is Muhammad. What's his father's name, his grandfather's name? They don't know more than that. What's his uncle's name? What's his wife's name? What's his children's name? You know, Prophet has 7 children. What are his names? How many of us can answer that? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And what about the companions radiallahu anhum? For example, Abu Bakr. What was his actual name? Abu Bakr was his kunya. What's his actual name? Most people won't know his name. Likewise, the rest of the companions. Well, how much do we know about them? And you'll find the Salaf, they were the opposite. كانوا يعلمونهم حب أبي بكر وعمر كما يعلمونهم السورة من القرآن. That just as they would teach a child a surah from the Quran, learn Surah Al-Ikhlas, قل هو الله أحد الحمد لله رب العالمين, they would teach them to love Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma. But nowadays, due to social media, those people that have no authority whatsoever, no importance whatsoever, they have been taken as role models. Yeah, even to non-Muslims, those who are singing, right, what's so good about a singer? The voice just sounds good, but then they're talking about politics and all these other things, they're not qualified to do so. But people have taken these people as role models, and their scale of measuring what is right and what is wrong is what? Is how many followers a person has, or how eloquent a person speaks. And that is not the correct weighing scale. إِنَّ مِنَ الْبَيَانِ لَسِحْرًا, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that some speech is a form of magic. And just because somebody speaks good, and he sounds good, doesn't mean that he's right. And likewise, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مِنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. The Prophet ﷺ says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, if you were to follow the majority of the people, لَا يُضِلُّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, they will divert you away from the path of Allah. So it's not about how many people follow you, or how many followers that a person has, but rather, what's the weighing scale? As the Prophet ﷺ said, I have left for you 2 things and you will never go astray as long as you cling on to both of them. the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this isn't just for, non-practicing people or things like that. Even those who are practicing, those who are praying, you'll find that they are invalidating the acts of worship due to social media. Imagine this. Does it make sense logically, right? That if you have worked on something for your whole life, a project, which is one of the greatest accomplishments of your life, just for you to destroy it for something which doesn't have any benefit. And it only took less than a second. Does it make sense? It doesn't. But what do people do? They'll save for their whole life and go for Hajj. Then they'll go for Hajj and they'll say to their friend, right, take a picture of me. And then he pretends to do dua in front of the Kaaba. He's not making dua to Allah, he just wants to pose for the picture. Right? And he wants to show everyone that I'm doing Hajj. When I come back, my title now is Haji. Even though Hajj is obligatory upon every single person. But okay, Haji. Right? And call me Haji. If you don't call me this title, right, that's disrespect. Right? What's the point of the Hajj? What's the point of all those years of saving up? What's the point of the hardship that you went through in Hajj anyway? In the scorching heat, walking from here to Muzdalifah to Arafah to Mina. Right? Sometimes a person can do such a great action. Maybe during the action he was sincere to Allah. But then because social media, he does what? He destroys the action that he did. Sulaiman ibn Dawood al-Hashimi rahimahullah, he says, رُبَّمَا أُحَدِّثُ بِحَدِيث. Maybe I'm teaching a lesson and I narrate a hadith. One hadith I'm narrating. But then, during that hadith, my intention changes. فَإِذَا الْحَدِيثُ الْوَاحِدُ يَحْتَاجُ إِلَّا نِيَّةٍ. So I realize that one hadith needs a number of intentions. I'm narrating a hadith, then I see somebody walk in, I see somebody smile, I see somebody become amazed. So whilst I'm narrating that same hadith, shaitan comes, whispers, and my intention changes. So within that one hadith, I need to rectify my intention. Okay, if that's one hadith, then what do you think about actions greater than that? And then a person taking pictures of that and putting it up on social media. And then there's so many other sins that also take place on social media, such as backbiting, right? Or gossiping, or speaking about the religion without any knowledge. And the worst is the comments on Instagram and the comments on Twitter. Every single person's got an opinion on the religion. And whether you like it or not everyone is qualified to speak about the religion. Just because somebody's got health doesn't make him a doctor. Just because somebody knows A squared has B squared equals C squared doesn't make him a maths teacher or an engineer. Right? Likewise, just because you're a Muslim, it doesn't mean that you are qualified to speak about their religion. And then you'll find people saying all sorts on social media. And all of this is from the greatest of sins. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا حَرَّمَ رَبِّيَ الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ. This ayah, a bit of a long ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the major sins. And He mentions many of them, immoral acts and so on. وَأَن تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا. And then to commit shirk with Allah. Allah is going in order from the lowest to the highest. So He's mentioned the second to last being shirk. And then He says right at the end, وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. To speak about Allah that which you do not know. That's why some ulama have said that a sin worse than shirk is speaking about the religion without knowledge. Because you are attributing to Allah that which He did not say. And you are now misguiding others. When you commit shirk, it's for yourself. Right? The sin's upon you. But with this now, you are misguiding others as well. From the greatest of sins is to speak about the religion without being qualified, without any knowledge. Even if you have a doubt that you might have heard something but you're not 100% sure, it's not permissible for you to speak. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith narrated by 62 companions, مَنْ كَذَبَ عَلَيَّ مُتَعَمِّدًا فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Whoever lies about me intentionally, they let him take his seat in the hellfire. And the ulama will explain this hadith, they say, if you don't know 100%, anything else that you attribute to the Prophet is lies. من قال علي ما لم أقول فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Prophet said, whoever says that I said something which I did not say, let him take his seat in the hellfire. Also, another grave sin which is widespread amongst the brothers is not having any ghirah, not having any protective jealousy over their women. A person, if you had your credit card, right? You got a lot of money in that credit card or that debit card. Are you going to take a picture of that and put the details online? Are you going to be flashing that around? Are you going to keep it safe in your wallet? Or the jewelry that you have, are you going to keep it safe in a nice box? So why is it that which is more precious than that, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, we have no problem in putting their pictures up so that the rest of the world can see, and they can check out, and they can look, and they can comment on. And this type of person, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, min akhbath nas, the filthiest, the dirtiest, most despicable of people is the youth, the one that has no protective jealousy over their women. The Prophet ﷺ said, 3 types of people, no action, big or small, will be accepted from them. One of them is this person, the youth. The one that has no protective jealousy over his women. He doesn't care that other men are looking at his women folk. He doesn't care that somebody's checking her out. He doesn't care that other men are talking to her in a manner which is not befitting or without a reason. And you'll find that when this issue died within men, as Al-Albani rahimahullah, he said that only when this protective jealousy died in men, that's when modesty started to die in the women. Right? Which is true. If a man has a protective jealousy over his women folk, and he doesn't allow his daughter or his wife to walk out in a manner which is not befitting for her to do so, then she wouldn't be going out like that. But the first step was men losing that ghirah. So before I conclude, I want to mention some signs of social media addiction. They're not restricted to these, but these are just some signs that if you think you've come under any of these signs, it shows that we have an addiction to our phones or social media. The first, the constant urge to look at our phones. And any time you got a free minute, the first thing you do is pull out your phone. Salah finishes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, the first thing you do is pull out your phone. Especially when there's not a need. Right? You have that constant urge or twitch to always grab that phone, that shows there's a problem there. Or when you walk out of the room and you realize you don't have your phone, you start to panic. Or if the Wi-Fi gets turned off or your data finishes, again, you start fidgeting and become like a drug addict and you can't control yourself. Another sign is that anything that you do, you feel the urge that you have to announce it to the people. Right? Take a picture of this, put Instagram. Tweet on Twitter or X, it's called now, that I'm going to the masjid, I'm doing this, I'm going to the toilet. Or that when you wake up, the first thing that you do is check your phone. Right? You feel like I have to check the message, I have to check everything that I've received during the night. And the last one is that depending on how many likes or comments that you get on a certain post, that has an effect on your mood. You got less likes or you got comments that you didn't expect, that's it, you're depressed and you're angry and you're upset for the rest of the day. And if you got a lot of comments and that post went viral, that makes you happy. Linking your emotions and your mental health to the amount of likes and comments that you get on social media. All of these are signs that a person is addicted to social media. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Muhtaram Sami'in Kiram. आज का दौर सोशल मीडिया का है. सोशल मीडिया के फ़वाइद भी हमारे सामने है, लेकिन उसके नुकसानात उतने बढ़ चुके हैं कि अंदाज़ा नहीं लगाया जा सकता. ज़्यादा और गलत इस्तेमाल से हमारी ज़िंदगियों और अमाल पर गलत असरात भी आ चुकी है. इसके ज़्यादा इस्तेमाल से ज़हनी परेशानी, सेहत के मसाइल, डिप्रेशन, नींद के मसाइल, एअतिमाद की कमी, घर के झगड़े बढ़ रहे हैं. हत्ता कि ऐसे भी रिपोर्ट्स हैं कि इसके मनफी इस्तेमाल से लोग ख़ुदकुशी तक कर रहे हैं. शर्म व हया ख़त्म हो जा रहा है. एक ही घर में रहते हुए लोग एक दूसरे से दूर हो रहे हैं. रिश्तेदारियों में दूरियां बढ़ रही हैं. सोशल मीडिया से झूठी खबरें फैलाई जाती है. फसाद, घर के झगड़े, सियासी व मजहबी झगड़े, इनको फ़रोग़ दिया जा रहा है. अच्छी वीडियो के साथ फहाशी व बेहयाई की वीडियोज़ चलाई जा रही है. हत्ता कि अगर मोबाइल पर तिलावत कुरान पाक या ज़िक्र भी किया जा रहा होता, ऐसे मैसेज आ जाते हैं कि लोग तिलावत छोड़कर इनमें मगन हो जाते हैं. स्टूडेंट सोशल मीडिया की वजह से इल्म तहक़ीक़ और गौर व फ़िक्र से दूर होते जा रहे हैं। इन हालात में हमारी ज़िम्मेदारी है कि हम अल्लाह और उसके रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के फ़रामीन की तरफ ज़्यादा वक़्त लगाएँ। स्टूडेंट्स किताब के साथ और इल्म के साथ अपने आप को मजबूत करें, खैर के कामों के आगे बढ़ें, हर सुनने सुनाई बात का मैसेज को आगे नहीं भेजें, गलत कामों की तशहीर से बचें। रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के फरमान है कि मिन हुस्न इस्लाम अल-मर्इ तर्कुहु मा ला यानी, यानी इस्लाम की खूबसूरती और हुस्न ये है कि फजूल कामों छोड़ दिया जाए। अल्लाह ताला हमारी नेकियों की हिफाजत फरमाए और हर किस्म के फितने से महफूज रखें। आमीन। अक़ूलु क़ौली हाज़ा व अस्तग़फ़िरुल्लाह ली व लकुम व लिसाइरिल मुस्लिमीन। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहिल्लज़ी अरसला रसूलहु बिल हुदा व दीनिल हक़्क़ि लियज़हिरहु अला दीनि कुल्लिहि व कफ़ा बिल्लाहि शहीदा व अशहदु अन ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह वहदहु ला शरीका लह इक़रारन बिहि व तौहीदा व अशहदु अन्न मुहम्मदन अब्दुहु व रसूलुहु सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व सल्लम तस्लीमन मज़ीदा। अम्मा बअद। To conclude this khutbah, I want to mention some of the ways in how we can overcome this addiction of being glued to our phones and to social media. The first is the acknowledgement of this addiction. The first step to any cure generally is that a person acknowledges that there is a problem. And if a person doesn't realize that there is a problem, then he's not going to strive to cure and solve that problem. So therefore, a person needs to be true to himself and honest with himself. How much time does he actually spend on social media or on his phones? And nowadays, and this is maybe you can make it a second point as well, is to get those apps, or sometimes it's already built in the phones, where you can monitor how long you're on your phones for. And let's have a look. How many hours in a day are you spending on WhatsApp, or on Snapchat, or on TikTok, or on your phones, or playing games, or whatever it may be. And imagine if you spent a quarter of that time, a fifth of that time reciting Quran. We'll be finishing Quran every single week. And also, another way is downloading those apps that maybe restrict the amount of time that you're spending on certain apps. Maybe if you only want to be on that for 5 minutes, notification comes up and it says, right, the time's over. Because sometimes, you actually open your phone to check one thing and then you check everything else apart from the thing that you need to, right? Your mind just enters into that other world. So sometimes these apps, they help. They alert you that you're spending too much time on this, you need to get back to work. Another way of staying away from these addictions, which is a primary and foundational solution for every issue that a person is going through, which is having the tawheed of Allah. Solidifying that tawheed of Allah. That when a person is conscious that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at him, and he has that fear of Allah, and he has that love of Allah, then he's not going to be as busy with the phone. When you're in an important meeting, or you're doing something important, or you've got a deadline to complete, or you've got an exam the following night, that night you're not on your phone, right? Because you got that which is more important in front of you. So when a person establishes the tawheed of Allah, normally and naturally a person will be spending less time on his phone, and the taqwa of Allah will also stop that person from falling into sin, looking at that which is haram, listening to that which is haram, talking to whom it is haram for a person to talk to. That taqwa of Allah will automatically reduce that. Also, another way is making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any problem that a person is going through, then a person should be making dua to Allah. And there are many du'as that Prophet would make, not just religious du'as, but also for a person's mental health, from depression, from being a coward, from being stingy, from all these characteristics which are dispraised. There are many du'as found in the Sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he's asking Allah to seek refuge from that, and he's asking Allah to cure them from that. And another tip is to busy yourself with that which is more beneficial. And if you have some free time, what's going to happen? You're just going to spend it on your phone. But if you fill up that free time with something which is beneficial, something which is important, you're not going to be focusing on what is on your phone. And lastly, and I think the reality is most people might not do this, but maybe some people that do, it'll benefit them a lot, is to just go back in time and get those trap phones, those Nokia brick phones, right? So that firstly, it doesn't break, and secondly, you're not going to be busy with social media and so on. You need to call someone, you need to speak to someone, right? You'll do that. Anything more than that, right? You're not busying yourself and wasting your time with anything else. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us in our time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure us from all of these different types of oppressions. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him his fear, both in public and in private. There's a couple of announcements. Firstly, the china that we have every Friday is continuing after Maghrib today, inshallah. We've started a new book. We have like a 10-minute reminder after Maghrib. We've started a new book titled Ahadith Islah al-Qulub. Those ahadith pertaining to the rectification of hearts. So inshallah, we'll start with 10 minutes after Maghrib, and then after that you're free to enjoy the chai and whatever other snacks are available. Also, as you can see, the work for the air conditioning has started, and it's costing just over 42,000. And we have 2 installments to pay, so please try to donate as much as you can. If everyone in this room was to give £100, then we will fill that target in no time, inshallah. Likewise, the madrasa classes have started again, so if anybody wants to enroll their children, then please speak to the management and we'll enroll your children, inshallah. And lastly, tomorrow there is a program, a lecture for sisters only by Ustadh Yasmin Ishaq, and her topic is titled The Cure, Ash-Shifa, and she'll be talking about OCD, Wiswas, anxiety, all of these mental health issues. Inshallah, she'll be talking about all of them, and this is a lecture after Dhuhr tomorrow, inshallah, only for sisters. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكن من الخاسرين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يعظكم ولذكر الله تعالى أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون.